There are moments in life when a child stops believing that adults will always keep them safe. For 16-year-old Emily, that moment arrived with a single locked door. Her father had been gone for years, but his memory never faded. He had filled her childhood with bedtime stories, warm hugs, and the quiet promise that she would always be protected. After he passed away, everything changed. Her mother remarried a man named Sam, hoping to rebuild their lives. Instead, the house slowly became a place filled with shouting, broken dishes, and heavy silence. At first, Emily tried convincing herself it would get better. But Sam's behavior grew stranger with every passing week. One evening, while she sat reading alone in her bedroom, he quietly entered and shut the door behind him. Long pause. Fear rushed through her before she could even think. She escaped his room and ran straight to her mother, her voice shaking as she begged for help. Instead of comfort, she received disbelief. Her mother's face hardened as she dismissed every word Emily tried to say, insisting that Sam deserved respect and accusing her own daughter of making up lies. That single moment shattered something inside Emily. The next morning, she hid her pain behind forced smiles at school, but her teacher noticed the sadness she couldn't hide forever. Emily denied that anything was wrong, even though every part of her wanted someone to believe her. She had no idea that before another sunrise arrived, a knock at the front door would change the course of her entire life forever. The knock came early the next morning. When Emily opened the front door, she found a woman wearing a dark jacket, holding a folder close to her chest. Her voice was calm, but her words changed everything. "Emily, I'm here to take you somewhere safe." Emily blinked in confusion and looked toward her mother, expecting an explanation or at least a hug. Instead, her mother lowered her eyes and remained silent. Deep breath. Without another word, Emily packed the few things that mattered most: a worn teddy bear, a notebook, a faded photograph of her father, and one of his favorite books. Every item felt like a small piece of the life she was leaving behind. The drive seemed endless. Emily watched houses, parks, and familiar streets disappear through the window until they stopped in front of a tall gray building surrounded by a metal fence. It looked nothing like the home she had dreamed of. Inside, the hallways echoed with quiet footsteps. Children moved from room to room, carrying stories hidden behind tired eyes. "This will be your room," the woman said gently. A girl with long dark hair looked up from the bed beside the window. "I'm Lily," she said softly. Emily forced a small smile. "I'm Emily." Their conversation was short, almost awkward, but it carried something neither of them expected. They were strangers, yet both understood what it felt like to lose the place that was supposed to feel safe. That night, sleep refused to come. Emily lay awake, missing her father more than ever, and wondering if her mother had even noticed she was gone. Then she felt something settle across her shoulders. Lily had quietly placed an extra blanket over her. "You looked cold," she whispered. Emily looked into her roommate's gentle eyes, surprised by such a simple act of kindness. "Thank you," she murmured. Lily smiled faintly. "I know what lonely feels like." Soft sigh. For the first time in many months, Emily realized kindness could still exist, even in the saddest places. But she didn't know that every girl living inside those walls carried a heartbreaking secret of her own, and learning their stories would change Emily forever. The days at the shelter slowly settled into a routine, but the sadness Emily carried didn't disappear overnight. Every morning she made her bed, attended school, and returned to the quiet building that still felt unfamiliar. Yet with each passing day, the people inside those walls became a little less like strangers. Lily introduced her to the other girls. Sarah laughed easily, but every time someone mentioned parents, her smile quietly faded. Maya rarely spoke, yet she was always the first to help with homework or offer encouragement before a difficult test. No one asked painful questions. Somehow, they all understood that some memories were too heavy to explain. One warm afternoon, Emily and Lily sat together in the small garden watching butterflies drift between the flowers. "Do you ever wonder why our families let us go?" Emily asked. Lily stared at the ground for a long moment before gently taking Emily's hand. I stopped asking that question, she whispered. Now I ask how I can build a better future. Those words stayed with Emily. That evening, laughter echoed through the dining room as the girls shared stories, celebrated small victories, and teased one another over dessert. For the first time since leaving home, Emily found herself laughing too. It felt strange at first, then comforting. Gentle laugh. Later, as she lay in bed, she realized something important. A family wasn't always the people you were born with. Sometimes, it was the people who chose to stand beside you when life had fallen apart. But healing wasn't complete. Late that night, Emily woke from another nightmare, hearing Sam's angry voice in her memory. Her hands trembled as tears filled her eyes. Lily quietly switched on the bedside lamp and sat beside her. You don't have to fight those memories alone anymore, she said. Emily wanted to believe her. She truly did. But the very next morning, an unexpected visitor walked through the shelter's front doors, someone Emily never imagined she would see again. The unexpected visitor wasn't someone Emily feared. It was Miss Laura. The moment Emily saw her favorite teacher standing in the shelter's reception area, her eyes filled with tears. Without saying a word, she hurried forward and wrapped her arms around her. I've missed you, Miss Laura whispered, holding her close. Emily smiled through her tears. I thought everyone had forgotten about me. I never could, Miss Laura replied. You matter far more than you know. Voice trembling. They spent the afternoon talking in the shelter's small library. Emily spoke carefully at first, but little by little, the words poured out. She talked about the fear she had carried at home, the loneliness she felt after leaving, and the unexpected friendship she had found with Lily. Miss Laura listened without interrupting. When Emily finished, her teacher reached into her bag and placed a notebook with a bright red cover on the table. I want you to write, she said gently. Not because anyone will read it, but because your heart deserves to be heard. That evening, Emily opened the notebook beneath the soft light beside her bed. She wrote a letter to the person she missed most. Dear Dad, I wish you were still here. There were days I felt invisible. I told the truth, but no one believed me. Sometimes I wondered if I would ever feel safe again. She paused, wiping away quiet tears before continuing. But I'm beginning to meet people who remind me of the kindness you taught me. Lily makes me laugh. My teachers still care about me. Maybe life hasn't finished writing my story after all. When she closed the notebook, something inside her felt lighter. The pain hadn't disappeared, but it no longer carried the same weight. For the first time in years, Emily fell asleep without fear. She didn't realize that peace would last only a short while, because just a few days later, the shelter staff called her name and quietly said words she never expected to hear. Emily, someone has come to see you. And when she learned who was waiting outside, every emotion she had worked so hard to rebuild came rushing back at once. Emily's heart pounded as she walked toward the front office. Every step felt heavier than the last. When she opened the door, she froze. Her mother was standing there. She looked different. The confidence Emily remembered was gone. Dark circles rested beneath her eyes, and her hands trembled as she clutched the strap of her bag. Emily, she whispered. Emily couldn't answer. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then her mother took a careful step forward. I've replayed that day in my mind 1,000 times, she said, her voice breaking. You begged me to believe you, and I failed you. I was afraid of facing the truth, and because of my fear, I hurt the person I should have protected most. Long pause. Tears filled Emily's eyes. You chose him, she said quietly. I know, her mother replied, and I will regret that for the rest of my life. The room fell silent. Emily wanted to run into her mother's arms. Another part of her wanted to walk away forever. Both feelings were real. Finally, she took a slow breath. I can't pretend everything is okay, she said. Some wounds need time. Maybe one day I can forgive you, but today, I need to keep healing. Her mother nodded, tears streaming down her face. You don't owe me forgiveness, she whispered. I only wanted you to know that I'm sorry. Before leaving, she gently placed a small envelope on the table. Inside was a photograph of Emily and her father, taken years before at a park. On the back, in her mother's handwriting, were simple words. He would be proud of the young woman you're becoming. After she left, Emily held the photograph close to her heart. She didn't cry because the pain was gone. She cried because, for the first time, she understood that healing wasn't about forgetting the past. It was about refusing to let the past decide her future. Weeks turned into months. Spring filled the shelter garden with colorful flowers. Emily laughed more often. She studied harder, helped younger girls settle into their new rooms, and reminded each frightened child that they weren't alone. One quiet afternoon, she opened the red notebook one last time and wrote a new letter. Dear Emily, you survived the hardest chapter of your life. You are not the frightened girl who believed she had no voice. You are brave enough to speak, strong enough to heal, and kind enough to help others find hope. No matter where life takes you next, never forget this. You are always worthy of love. She smiled as she closed the notebook. Lily sat beside her on the garden bench and gently squeezed her shoulder. What are you thinking about? She asked. Emily looked toward the bright blue sky, where a single bird soared freely above the trees. I'm thinking, she said softly, that home isn't always the place you come from. It's the place where you finally feel safe enough to become yourself. Soft sigh. Her journey wasn't ending. It was only beginning. And this time, she would walk forward with courage, hope, and a voice that no one would ever silence again.